30F35M, Christmas hell. I used sensitive info in a fight with husband. Please excuse me if this post is long-winded. I've never posted before and I'm genuinely looking for some insight. I'm perfectly fine with being at fault and I am trying to find an acceptable solution to the problem. For reference, we have been married since 2020 and dating since 2014. I, 30F, recently got into a huge argument with my husband, 35M, on Christmas. We have not spoke to each other since. This is the longest fight we have had and I don't see it going back to normal anytime soon. The weekend of Christmas my husband and I changed our holiday plans due to him having mild cold symptoms even though it was not COVID. We decided to not expose his elderly grandma and decided to stay in. It was an easy decision as we had hosted a Christmas party with his family the weekend prior. After discussing, we agreed to have my parents and 2 brothers come over Christmas morning. However, leading up to Christmas he was upstairs in his gaming room for 12+ hours Friday, Saturday and Sunday. I could hear him laughing, screaming, and interacting with his friends all weekend long. When I would ask him to come downstairs for lunch or to spend some time watching a movie, he would become aggravated and annoyed like I was inconveniencing him. He would say he wasn't feeling well for it. This is something that happens very often outside of this weekend. For Christmas he refused to be a part of any pictures or unwrapping as he says he wasn't feeling well. When my family had finally left and he had gone upstairs to play again, I realized that my family did not close the door properly on their way out and it was open the front of our home facing the street. I begin to panic because we have a small dog who is my world, and after calling him multiple times and searching, I couldn't find him. As I continue searching, I start shouting to my husband that there is an emergency and I can't find our dog. I needed his help. He just shouts back, "I'm busy, just keep looking. Have you checked in XYZ location?" I'm running down the street and looking through rooms in a panic. All the while my husband has not disconnecting from video games. About 10 minutes later I am able to find our dog and he is safe. Turns out he had accidentally wandered into our laundry room and couldn't get out. This is when my husband comes downstairs and says, "See, I told you he was fine." Well, I was just in a fit of rage and panic and I tell him that I'm so tired of being number 2 in his life. All his free time he is playing. We hardly go to bed together anymore or spend our free time together. This is impacting our relationship in many ways. I explain that I never knew this hobby of his would put our relationship in his number 2 priority. He then rebuts by saying that he didn't know before marrying that my decorating and preparing for Christmas would be such a priority. I felt so incredibly hurt from this, as the reason I do this is to create memories and our own traditions as a couple. This was the 3rd time he'd thrown buying a new Christmas tree in my face during arguments, even though it was his idea to buy one from Costco this year. I was hurt that all my efforts were seen as a waste. In anger, I tell him not to worry and that this would be the last year I would ever decorate or try to make an effort for the holidays. I begin to angrily take down all of the decorations in the house and packed everything away. I tell my husband that I never wanted him to throw the tree purchase in my face again and I packed it away to return to Costco. I know this is tacky, but I was sick of him throwing it in my face. Also, the tree had a recall as the remote for it stopped working and it was eligible for a return. As I'm trying to lug this 100-pound 12-feet tree box into my car, my husband and I begin to tug the box back and forth between the two of us. He began saying, "If you return this tree, I'm packing my things and I'm leaving." This threw me off guard as he'd never said anything like this to me before. I leave the tree in the doorway and begin packing other Christmas items around the house. Meanwhile, I can hear him pulling out a suitcase and begin packing. I felt so angry and distraught, but I didn't say anything to him as he's doing so. He puts his items in his truck and then comes to sit in our home. After 30 minutes, I guess he decided to not leave after all, so then he goes upstairs to continue playing video games. The very reason the argument started in the first place. After a couple of hours of him playing, out of petty anger, I used the Wi-Fi app to restart our internet to mess with his gaming. I know this was petty and stupid. I regret doing it. This upsets my husband so much, and he was so angry I did that, and when he confronted me about it, I just froze and said it wasn't me. I am a horrible liar, and he knew right away. He was so angry that he decided to leave. He got in his truck with his items, turned off his location and drove away. I called him 4 times, and on the last he picked up. I asked him where he was, and he claims he was going to spend the night at his work parking garage. We begin to argue on the phone, and long story short, the last thing I said to him was, "I always thought you were like your dad, but it turns out you're just like your mother." He had recently opened up to me with more details about his childhood and his absent mother who left them when he was about 14. I knew as soon as I said it that this would cut him deeply. I regret saying it, and I feel horrible for even thinking it. He refuses to speak to me, and the last thing he said is he feels like he never wants to open up to me again. I don't know what to do or how to proceed from here. Any advice or insight would be appreciated. If you made it this far, thank you so much. I'm sorry for any typos or grammatical errors. I'm typing while very crying and upset. TLDR. Husband and I get into a fight about him spending too much time playing video games. Results in him packing his things and leaving. I compare his actions to that of his absent mother. We have not talked in a week. You've got 2 choices from here. Marriage counseling that both of you are 100% dedicated to, or get divorce lawyers. He needs to learn that locking himself away 24/7 to play games is not a realistic contribution to a healthy marriage, and you need to learn how to communicate without an acid tongue. You're still really young, and you both need to decide if putting in the work is worth it. There's no shame in going your separate ways. I wish you both the best of luck in your journeys. I'm not sure why you would even want to salvage this relationship. You shouldn't have said what you said. But your husband is extremely manipulative. Too sick to help with the Christmas setup, but well enough to play 36 hours of video games. Complains that you make a big deal out of the holidays, but also wants you to host his family. Uses the Christmas tree he agreed to in an argument, but when you want to return it, so it's not a point of contention. He threatens to leave. Starts packing his suitcase over a tree he's holding over on you. Why? Because if you return it, he can't keep bringing it up in a fight. Then after the whole fight started over his video games, he goes back and starts playing them again. Should you have messed with the Wi-Fi? No, probably not. But also, telling him to stop playing after 3 days straight and his threatening to leave didn't stop him. So I can understand you were at a breaking point. Should you have said what you said about his mother? No. You need to really think if this is the relationship you want. Because when the rubber hits the road, this is who he is. A guy who would rather play video games than spend the holidays with family. If you have kids, do you really think he's going to help? Your dog is missing and he's like, not now. Maybe later. When I'm done with this game. It wasn't a crisis. But it could have been, and where was he? Playing video games and couldn't be bothered. Your husband sounds highly manipulative. And yes, definitely a gaming addict. Also, threatening to leave instead of talking to you? After completely ignoring you the entire time? He needs help with his addiction if you want to save this marriage. If he refuses, then you are wasting your time. It's only going to get worse and you'll regret all the time you wasted waiting for him to see the light and get better. I know a couple where the addict was in complete denial and it ruined their marriage. What you did was wrong, emo. But why would you even want to salvage this relationship? Your husband sounds insufferable. Plus 12 hours a day gaming. That's not acceptable for a marriage. I would put on your best running shoes and leave him with the quickness. Separate and go separate ways. You guys sound extremely incompatible. Tell him that you are going to file for divorce. I don't see anything here worth salvaging, tbh. This whole relationship feels like it's just made up of little hells. If this is how bad it's gotten, why would you want this man-child that constantly insults you back? You're young. You have time. Make a family with someone worth anything. He doesn't bring anything forward as a partner. Sucks you said what you said. But that's not a husband, that's a child, LMAOM. Time to go your own way. This guy has no interest in being in a relationship. He is a man-child and wants to sit and play video games. You thought your dog was lost and he couldn't be bothered putting down his toy? Move on to a grown man. Tell him to come get the rest of his stuff. Honestly, you told him the truth. He sounds like a jerk. Sounds like you snapped after days of abandonment. Insults, manipulation and spiteful childishness from him. Was what you said kind? No. Was it immensely productive? No. Was it accurate? Sounds like it. He'd already decided to shut you out and leave you alone and miserable on a holiday. He'd already made clear he isn't interested in spending time with you. And he doesn't care if you're stressed or upset. He already decided to move out because you wanted to return a Christmas tree that he had been whining about despite suggesting buying in the first place. And now he's angrily saying he doesn't want to open up to you again. What? Because him opening up was a gift you should be grateful for, rather than something that was good for him? It sounds to me like he has some underlying emotional problems around Christmas, likely related to his not great feelings about his parents, and was displacing those, taking out his feelings about it on you. Did his family pressure him into playing happy families at Christmas and now he's avoidant about it? That sounds a lot like the sort of thinking that causes this avoidant behavior, and results in people behaving so awkwardly because they're assuming there will be conflict that they create the conflict. But the key thing is, even if it's that or something similar, that nonetheless wouldn't justify him treating you this way. If that's what is going on, it's on the people with these problems to go to therapy so they don't bully their new family for the problems of their old one. He created a conflict. He panicked when you didn't back down to his manipulation. He tried to back down without actually apologizing, tried silent treatment, waiting it out in the hope you'd come crawling back, and freaked out again and escalated when you made clear, with the Wi-Fi stunt, that wasn't going to work and he couldn't just pretend he didn't set up a problem. He escalated again, and now he's panicking again because he doesn't know how to walk his actions back. So he's casting around for reasons you should feel worse than him and take all the blame. Your final loss of temper gave him something to fix on, and he's riding it for all he's worth to try and force not discussing or apologizing for his actions in the lead up. In your position, I would say, once, I acknowledge that remark was over the line and hurtful. I apologize for expressing my feelings of abandonment in that way. If you feel you can't open up in future, I accept that it may take time to regain that trust. However, my losing my temper came on the back of days on end of bad behavior, provocation and deliberate escalation from you. I need you to also acknowledge and apologize for the multiple different hurtful and unreasonable things you have said and done over the last couple of weeks. and to acknowledge that you have a very great deal of work to do to regain my trust. I am open to marriage counseling, but until you are prepared to meet me halfway and proceed with that, I think it's for the best that you stay elsewhere. I'll reach out again in 2 weeks to ask for an answer on whether you have calmed down and want to de-escalate and work this out. Essentially, call him on his latest escalation of the emotional pressure to back down by saying, okay, you've moved out. You can stay there. He's relying on you, begging for him to come home. Don't. And be clear that's a deliberate decision, not an omission or an avoidance. If he doesn't take the time to reflect and calm down and isn't prepared to touch any aspect of this, besides your sharp words as if those wipe out everything else, then you need to make plans to move forward with your life. I mean, nothing you said was wrong or untrue though. Why the hell would you want to be with someone who leaves you when you tell them how badly they've been neglecting you? Oh, my wife feels like an afterthought in my life. Guess I'll leave. That'll show her how much I care. Quote, what happens if you have kids? Or if you get injured and need his help? He's gonna say, you're fine, and continue playing his games? You deserve much better than this. You need to work on communicating in anger without fighting dirty. It will be important in your next relationship. He let you run around the neighborhood hysterical because he was too busy gaming. Keep the pup. Lose the man. Why do you bother with this video game addict? You don't have a husband. You have a man-child at home who's entitled to keep living his childlike life. I'd turn this around on him. Bring the Christmas tree back and pack your bags and leave and let him come back and fend for himself, at least for a while. He's an ungrateful jerk. Well, I'm not really sure why you would actually want to try and salvage this marriage. The two of you seem to have totally different lifestyles and care very little about each other. Peaceful communication. My advice is to get a lawyer. Because I think this marriage is done. Honestly, divorce. He sounds like a real boss that doesn't care about the work you put in trying to make happy memories with him. He should be excited that you're making an effort in decorating the house for holidays, gift wrapping, and everything in between. I'm sure it took you a long time to do everything as well, and I'm sure it looked perfect and lovely. I'm sorry your husband is such an asshole. But you deserve way more than this op. Please don't blame yourself. You did nothing wrong here. Don't feel guilty for what you said either. He's been hurting you worse than anything you did, said to him. He doesn't even care about your well-being or your dogs. Someone you care about. Which literally means he doesn't care about you. Don't stay with this man, please. Did you marry an adult? You are not on the wrong side of this. He's not a good partner and quite honestly a big jerk. What you said is not entirely inaccurate. He decided to go nuclear and leave you over you trying to communicate to him about your unhappiness. He insulted all your efforts. He was so quick to say he'll leave you. And he did. I can't really find fault in what you said. I mean, it was maybe below the belt, but you were making a significant point even if it was out of anger. He's being hypocritical in that you tried to share your unhappiness and he went on the defense and escalated it, but says to you he will never share with you again. Well, you couldn't exactly share with him, could you, and have a real conversation? He just ran away because video games important. Wife not so much.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.